Good day. We are the Group 6 and we're going to discuss about the process-oriented performance-based assessment. Now, get your pen and start taking down notes. Happy learning! So, the objectives of this discussion is that student can describe what is process-oriented assessment, explain the learning competencies of process-oriented assessment, discuss how to design a task in a process-oriented performance-based assessment, differentiate analytic rubrics and holistic rubrics, and lastly, get a good idea of when to use analytic rubrics and when to use the holistic rubrics.
Too often, we tend to assess students' learning through their outputs or products or through some kind of traditional testing. However, it is important to assess not only these competencies, but also the process which the students underwent in order to arrive at these products or outputs. It is possible to explain why the students' outputs are as they are through assessment of the processes which they did in order to arrive at the final product.
Learning is a complex process. It entails not only what students know, but what they can do with what they know. It involves not only knowledge and abilities, but values, attitude, and habits of mind that affect both academic success and performance beyond the classroom. Assessment should reflect these understandings by employing a diverse array of methods, including those that call for actual performance, using them over time so as to reveal change, growth, and increasing degree of integrations. The first topic is about process-oriented performance-based assessment that will be discussed by Ray Serstel Silvosa.
Process-oriented performance-based assessment is concerned with the actual task performances rather than the output or product of the activity. To improve students' product, we need to know about the student experience along the way in producing the product. This type of assessment can help us understand which student learn best under what conditions. With this knowledge comes the capacity to improve whole of their learning process.
The next topic is about process-oriented learning competencies.
The learning competencies in process-oriented performance-based assessment are stated in directly observable behaviors of students. Competencies are defined as groups or clusters of skills, abilities needed for a particular task. The objectives generally focus on the behaviors which exemplify a best practice for the particular task. Such behaviors range from a beginner or novice level up to the expert level.
So, a competency is said to be more complex when it consists of two or more skills. The first skills or competencies are simple competencies that has three types. The first one is speak with a well-modulated voice. Second, draw a straight line from one point to another point. Lastly, color a leaf with a green crayons. The second competency is the complex competency. The complex competency have three types also. The first one is recite a poem with feeling using appropriate voice quality, facial expression, and hand gestures. The second one, construct an equilateral triangle given three non-collinear points. And lastly, draw and color a leaf with a green crayons.
Task designing. Learning tasks need to be carefully planned. In particular, the teacher must ensure that the particular learning process to be observed contribute to the overall understanding of the subject or course. Some generally accepted standards for assigning a task include: first, identifying an activity that would highlight the competencies to be evaluated. Examples are a poem, writing an essay, manipulating the microscope, etc. Second, identifying an activity that would entail more or less the same set of competencies. If an activity would result in too many sets of competencies, then the teacher would have difficulty assessing the student's competency on the task. Last, finding the task that would be interesting and enjoyable for the student. The tasks such as writing an essay are often boring and cumbersome for the student. Accessible task design. Bring the students to a pond or creek. Ask them to find all the living organisms that they can find living near the pond or creek. Also, bring them to the school playground to find as many organisms as they can. Observe how the students will develop a system for finding such organisms, classifying them, and including the differences in biological diversity of the two types.
Scoring rubrics is a scoring scale used to assess students' performance along a task-specific set of criteria. So it's a standard of performance for a defined population. It is predetermined set of goals and objectives on which to base an evaluations. So there are two types of scoring rubrics: the analytic rubrics and the holistic rubrics. So the difference of analytic and holistic rubrics is that the analytic rubrics identify and assess a component of finished products, while ang holistic rubrics assess student work as a whole. So, the holistic rubrics is a single criterion rubrics, one-dimensional, used to assess participants' overall achievements on an activity or item based on predefined achievement level, whereas the analytic rubrics is a two-dimensional rubrics with level of achievement as columns and assessment criteria as rows. So the analytic rubric has description which make the scoring easy, while holistic rubrics doesn't have descriptors. It's easier to use the analytic rubric since it is made up of level of scale and descriptors which make it easier to rate or score a performance of the students. The analytic rubrics also attempts to break down the final product or goal into a measurable components and parts. In other words, your student has a project or assignments and you use an analytic scoring rubrics to evaluate all the pieces of the projects. Holistic rubrics does not list separate level of performance for each criterion. So instead of holistic rubrics, assign a level of performance by assessing performance across multiple criteria as a whole. So holistic rubrics allow you to assess students' overall performance on an activity or assessment. It is based on single scale using predefined achievements level. With a holistic rubrics, the instructors assign a single score, usually on a 1 to 4 point scale based on a judgment of a student's overall work. So this is the example of an analytic rubrics that can be turned into a holistic rubrics.
Now I could spell them out if I still tried. 'Cause I don't care as long as you're there.